Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Guidance from Gratitude's podcast. Today, I have the honor of having one of my best friends in the world, a mentor, and just a dear person, psychic medium Chip Coffey. You may know Chip from the television shows he's been on, his book, Growing Up Psychic, and I'm really honored that he has agreed to come and talk to us about his path into service and how he kind of was led into doing this work that he's doing. I have the honor of leading Chip's online events, and I see what he's able to share with people and give people what they need to let go of some of the weight and the burden that they're holding on, that sense of loss with loved ones, or even if they're feeling like they can't move forward in their lives, just how he's able to give them the guidance and encouragement even to know that things are going to be better, and some steps that they can take to do that. So Chip, thanks for being here tonight. I appreciate it.
It's so lovely to be here. You left out a very important resume items. I'm very honored to be the godfather to Robbie's daughter, Ella, who is a very bright light in my life.
Yes, and that's a whole different podcast episode. I think that would be its own series.
That's a mini series, I think.
I know that you're asked so many times in the groups that we do together, how did you know about your abilities? Like, when did you find out that you were psychic and a medium?
I should probably start by saying that on my mom's side of the family, that her grandmother, her father's mother, was Native American, and she was a Native American medicine woman. And people from the Southeast would come and seek out her services to work her medicine on them. This was back in the early part of the 20th century, in the 1900s, all the way through the early 1900s, all the way through the 1930s. Her name was Minnie Sue. And interestingly enough, Minnie Sue was born and died on the same day when she was 57 years old. She had a stroke and died on her birthday. And I didn't hear of anyone else who had abilities until I realized later that my mother did. She would get things periodically. I didn't know I had abilities until I was told I had abilities. And I guess my parents noticed when I was a toddler that I would be playing with my toys, and then all of a sudden I would just stop what I was doing and look at the phone. And shortly after that, the phone would ring. And then when I became verbal, I would be doing the same thing, playing with my toys, and would look over at the phone, look over at the phone, and say a name, and like Aunt Helen. And soon the phone would ring, and the person that I named would be on the other end of the phone. So I always joked that I was an early version of caller ID. I started to know things even at a very young age, 3, 4, 5. I started to know things about people and places and things. And when I was an adolescent boy, I lived in a haunted house in upstate New York. And I've always kind of been surrounded by things that were spiritual and supernatural and paranormal. It's been a running theme in my life. And I started the mediumship part of this journey when I was 47 years old. I had known about my psychic abilities. I'd explored things like tarot cards and scrying in a scrying mirror and studying other religions and belief systems and things like that during my college years and beyond. But the mediumship, as I said, started at 47 years old when the deceased brother of one of my coworkers in the travel industry where I was working at the time began communicating with me inside my head, and I thought I'd lost my mind. But I found the courage to tell the sister what I was picking up, and it was all accurate. And that kind of opened up the doorway or the floodgate, however you want to look at it or describe it. And since that time, which it's now, 23 years ago, I've talked to countless thousands of dead people and made it my career. As I said, I was working in the travel industry, and at that time wasn't paid enough to pay all my bills and still have money left over. So I started
Mhm.
doing some readings on the side on a psychic hotline.
Mhm.
And I was making decent money. The first month that I was on there working weekends and evenings, I made, $1,700
That's
and
great.
that was a nice little chunk of money to
Yeah.
have in addition to my travel agent salary. And then 9/11 happened. And
Mm.
shortly thereafter, I lost my job because people weren't traveling and travel agencies were closing or laying off
Mhm.
staff. And I got the axe in the travel industry and I packed up my stuff from my desk. And I remember saying to myself, well, I guess now you're a full time psychic and medium. And I had
So,
no confidence or courage that I was going to be able to support my habits of living indoors and eating. And I
mhm,
didn't want to have to
mhm,
break those habits and give them up. I didn't have a lot of money in savings. And I
mhm.
took a giant leap of faith and kind of dived into the deep end of the pool. And I did what I think all successful people do. I remained hardworking and ambitious and taking advantage of opportunities that were presented to me.
Mhm.
So it
Mhm.
sort of took on a life of its own. And I was supported by my angels and spirit partners. And together we co created where I'm at today.
Yeah.
And that pretty much is the story.
I want to go back when you were a kid. You said you had some family out in Long Island and a big Italian family, and you would
Huge.
go and
It was
walk.
my godparents' family. Yeah.
Oh, it was your godparents?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you would go, and all the women would take you into a room and have you
They
tell
would.
them stuff.
Oh, it was so funny. I said my first pay was Italian food because we'd go visit my godparents and their family. And of course, it was a huge Italian family. And the ladies, I mean, they range from everything to grandmothers to teenagers. This gaggle of women would grab me and pull me into one of the bedrooms and hover over me. And I remember one of the grandmother types said, "Tell us things," and I I did, and they would pay me in lasagna and spaghetti and meatballs and cannoli and whatever else.
Cannoli.
I know anything else
Well,
I wanted that was Italian food, they would just kind of. It was like dangling a carrot in front of a 10-year-old boy's nose. I was going to give him everything I had for that Italian food.
but what's amazing about that is that you were able to trust the messages that you were getting at, from a very young age. You had the validation, and that's where a lot of people kind of stumble when they're stepping into their own practice. They might doubt, that fear and doubt, and you've never really had that.
I had a very good support system because both my father's family and my mother's family had quote unquote weird things happen in their families,
Mhm,
things that could be
mhm,
considered spiritual or paranormal. They both had a
mhm.
belief system that embraced that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I was very supported in that. My parents never made me feel like I was any different than anybody else. I've said many times in talking with others that everyone has some level of psychic ability, that it's a sliding scale. And some
Mhm,
people have pronounced abilities. And I think those are the people that we call psychics, those people that have the more heightened abilities.
mhm.
And even though I had those heightened abilities, I was never made to feel like I was anything special or that my parents didn't mollycoddle me because of it. They didn't encourage me. They just let me be me. And that
Mhm.
was remembering back, that was a really lovely way to grow up.
And that's something that you encouraged on Psychic Kids.
Yes,
You
just
encourage the parents just to treat them as normal kids who had this gift
ability.
that they could use. Yeah, this ability that they could use, learn how to work with it so it didn't disrupt their lives.
Absolutely.
And that's something I think that why that show really resonated with people so strongly.
I don't really understand why people consider this really that far out of the norm. We all have some level of psychic ability. As I said, some people, it's a sliding scale. Some people have more of it than others.
Mhm.
But it's not that out of the ordinary. As a matter of fact, it's quite ordinary. We need to normalize it more a bit, I think.
It's just not talked about openly,
No, it
I
isn't.
think. And
It
that's
isn't.
one of the things Psychic Kids specifically help to do, and help to let people know that this is going on. And
Yes.
countless times we've been in events, people have said, your book or your the show made me know how to work with my kid, and that must make you feel really, really good.
It makes me feel very good. And people also say I was a psychic kid and was told, oh, that's against God or you're
Yeah.
crazy or whatever. And they suddenly have this cathartic experience after reading the book that they feel vindicated. I wasn't weird or crazy or bad.
It's really powerful when you see those moments in
Very.
our chip chats or gallery readings that we've done where people share that. So you kind of just went organically into the full-time work without any struggle. I mean, that's what I love about your progression. It's just like it just kind of happened naturally. You just allowed it.
And
You were led there.
all the dots really aligned. I mean,
Exactly.
I worked as an actor early on in my life and
Mm-hmm.
kept up with that into adulthood. And that made me feel really comfortable being in front of people and talking in front of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I studied psychology when I was in college. So that
Mm-hmm.
made me kind of understand the human psyche to a degree. And I worked in the travel industry so I could pack a bag and be on the road to do an event or whatever in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all those things sort of lined up to kind of lead me to where I am today. So it was a lot of different stepping stones that
Mm-hmm.
I've come to realize. I didn't at the time, but I've come to realize that all those things were leading me to where at almost 70 years old I am today.
That's exactly a conversation I had with someone who just recorded another episode, that you might not see where you're going, but know you're being led. You're gaining the skills and abilities to be able to do where you're gonna be in the future.
Therein lies this. I was not going to be the greatest actor on the face of the planet or a great
Mm-hmm.
psychologist or the world's hottest travel agent. But all those
Yeah,
things blended into this recipe brought me to where I am today. So it was, unbeknownst to me at the time, it was a plan in motion. You know,
exactly.
I was unknowingly and unwittingly co-creating with my spirit partners the life that I have today. And I'm really
Exactly. And you
curious
didn't
what comes to
resist
be.
it.
I'm really no, I didn't. I actually just went with the flow. I rode the wave.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting to note that now I find myself saying, okay, what's this the stepping stone for? What is the
Yeah.
next stone in my path? So I'm waiting to see.
And that's the curiosity that keeps us moving forward. That's you know, staying open to opportunities and the magic that's all around us, and
Yes.
just saying, I'm open for this next opportunity. What is it going to be? I'm happy with what I'm doing and I'm ready for the next thing if that's what you want me to move to. I love that.
Without fear and without doubt. Just,
Exactly.
embrace it. We all go through some heavy stuff in life, but
Mhm.
we have to tough it out sometimes and make it to the
Yeah,
next step, next phase. And
exactly.
we are the
And
amalgam of everything we've ever experienced. Everything we've ever experienced is right here and now.
that's another important part, is right here and now. You have to be in the present moment so you can see the opportunities right here that you can take. You can choose which way to go, but if you're too stuck in the past or in the future, you're not going to see what's right around you at this moment.
You're absolutely right. We just have to, sometimes it's a matter of trust, and you got to be willing to be hardworking and
Mm-hmm.
ambitious, and you've got to want it, no doubt about it. And you've got to co-create it, but you've got to do your part. Spirit's not going to do it
Yeah.
all for you. You signed up to ride this bucking bronco called life, and they'll help you in any ways that they're capable of doing, but they're not going to do it all for you. You got to put in the sweat equity.
I always say that, we have free will and we can choose to allow them to help us, or we can do it ourselves. We can do it the hard way. And so,
Or we can do a combination of both. We can do our part and allow
absolutely.
them to do their part. Sometimes it really is allowing ourselves to be a little vulnerable and allowing ourselves just to say, I'm not sure where this path is going to lead. So take my hand and pull me along with you for a bit. But you can't
Mm-hmm.
stay in that position for very long because they're not going to do it all for you. I mean,
No.
I wanted to get out of the travel industry. I
Mm-hmm.
disliked the company I was working for, and I was looking for an out. I was looking for an exit strategy, and
Mm-hmm.
they delivered it to me. Right there it
Yeah.
was. It was the psychic hotline I was working on, and I didn't trust
Yeah.
it. I did not
Yeah.
trust it at all. So finally, I got my butt booted out the door, and it was sink or swim. There were no travel
Mm-hmm.
agency jobs to be had in this country and probably worldwide at the time. I didn't actually have a plan B. So my plan B became you're going to work on that hotline and work your butt off and you're going to make a living. And I did. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, within 60 days, I was making more money working on the psychic hotline than I ever did in the travel industry.
Yeah. But the thing is so many people will get in that situation that you were in where you asked for a change, you wanted a change and desired it. The change happened, and then they get totally freaked out by that and
Yeah.
they can't move forward. It's like you asked for it, we provided. Now, what are you going to do with that?
Well,
You
to a
know?
degree, to a degree, I was there. So I think I got assisted by serendipity. What an awful thing 9/11 was. My life changed. I think most of our lives changed on that day in ways, various
Mm-hmm.
ways. But another way was it facilitated me losing my job. And
Mm-hmm.
so it changed the course of my life from that respect also.
Yeah.
So I was resistant at first to make that leap into where I was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a trust issue, fear and
Yeah.
doubt and a lack of trust.
Yeah.
So I too am somewhat quote unquote guilty of not trusting the path. And I was kind of strong armed into it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand people's reluctance to know where they're supposed to be, but be fearful of going there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I
But
totally understand it, but it's just like if you look
it,
at
it,
it from our spirit partners' side, they're like, "But wait a second,
hold on.
we gave it to you.
And it really,
What's you hemming and hawing about down
it,
there?"
it really becomes self sabotage, doesn't it? Kind of in a
Yeah,
way,
yeah, yeah.
it becomes
I
self
mean, I recently
sabotage.
had a client who asked me for something, and I said, "Of course, yes, let's do that." And then as soon as I said yes, let's do that, they were like, "Wait, you said yes. Now I have to do it." I'm like, "Well, yeah." And they were just like, "But now I'm scared to do it." I was like, "Okay, well, let's look at why we're scared." You have to stop and then look at those elements and see how you can get unscared, or at least have a little less fear so you can take that next step forward. you know
You
and
have to
that you don't have to
really,
be fearless, but
you have to overcome the fear.
yeah.
You have to self manage yourself.
Yes, exactly.
And
So
I know for a while, let's talk about you for a while.
oh,
I
we
know
don't need
for
to do that, Chip.
yes, we do actually. I know that you kind of felt the same way. You felt kind of some level of uncertainty about stepping into your path. And I
Yeah.
have to give you huge kudos for actually doing that in such a beautifully perfect way, Robbie, because you
Well,
managed to embrace the talents and the skill sets and the gifts that you have and how you can shine a bright light into the world and help other people. And I'm so proud of you for finding that resolve to do so.
thank you. I appreciate that.
It's been really lovely for me to be an observer of that and watch it unfold. I've loved it.
Well, thank you. It's definitely interesting because I went in thinking this is what I want to do, and it's helping other people, other practitioners produce their events, and then the pandemic happened, and I was like, this is it. I'm gonna be able to help people with this. And they were like, no, that's not what you're doing. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And every single time something would get right at the place where it was going to work out, it didn't. And I was like, why isn't this happening? And then I did a workshop with this guy named Radley Valentine, and he was just laughed when I told him. He's like, "Yeah, you'll see," you know, and it was that's the thing. It wasn't what I was supposed to be doing, and I had to get out of the way, and I had to. And the next day, I set up my internship, and I just started doing it. I was like, I can't fight this. I have to see if it works out. So, but you encouraged me the whole way along, and I
I,
and
you know,
gracious
and
with your time and listening to me and counseling me and everything.
you
So
want
thank
you
you
want
for
you want a news flash for this evening? Spirit is far from done with you.
that. Well,
Spirit is far from done with new epiphanies and denouements and discoveries that you will continue to make in your path, in your journey.
well, I'm surprised they're not done with me. That mule, get him out of here.
I know, stubborn as a mule.
Yeah, I
Sometimes you
win.
just gotta take the Beatles approach and let it be. You just have to
Yes, you do.
you have to let things evolve in the way that they're meant to evolve, because with certain things in life, resistance is futile.
It's just interesting how things unfold when you start to really pay attention.
It is very much so.
Allow yourself to be led where you're supposed to be.
Yep. And sometimes
So,
that's scary. I mean, no doubt it's scary, because we as human beings, we don't like change and we're afraid of
mhm.
change. But life changes when we least expect it to sometimes, and not always when we're prepared for it to change. When that happens, you just have to pull up your big boy or big girl panties and just move ahead with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to shift gears a little bit because you touched a little bit, but not really expanding on it because you have such a deep faith
I do.
in God and you have your own spirituality that I know is very important to you and your practice. Why don't you just talk a little bit about that and how you use that in your work?
Well, I was brought up in the Roman Catholic faith. And quite honestly, as I aged into my adult years, I became disillusioned with the Roman Catholic Church, with their rigidity and their hypocrisy and their dogma. And I love the faith, but I don't like the religion. I don't like many, if any, organized religions. I think they're too demanding, and lots of times have the attitude of, if you don't believe what I believe, then you're going straight to hell and you're wrong and you're bad. So I decided I was going to take parts of my Catholic faith and continue to embrace them and add with it my spiritual beliefs that I've gathered together over the years and form my own little religion of Chip, I guess, which I have a very personal and profound relationship with God, which is what I call my highest power. Some people use the term higher power. I use highest for God. I think God is the amalgam, all that is head honcho. That's kind of the way I look at God.
Mhm,
There's a spark of God in all of us. So we're
mhm,
all part of that amalgam. And it's beyond comprehension and beyond understanding to us mere mortals of how that works and who that is or what that is. I don't proselytize. I don't try to convince or convert people to my ways of thinking. I don't care what you believe or what you think. Just as long as you're a good person and you treat yourself and others well, then
mhm,
that's what counts. Spirit told me once a long time ago that they don't ask a lot of things of us. They ask two things and two things only: do no intentional harm to yourself or to others, and get happy. And you've got to do those in
mhm,
tandem. You can't shoot up a mall or a school or fly airplanes into buildings because it makes you happy doing it, because that's
mhm,
hurting other people and yourself intentionally. But
mhm,
if you do
mhm,
those things in tandem, then that's what Spirit asks of you. And one thing that Spirit's been whispering to me for, I would say, the better part of a year, it just started happening and it's pretty regular. They keep saying to me, and you've heard me say this many times, do what you love and love
mhm,
what you do. And I think that's beautiful. Find something that
mhm,
you can be passionate about that brings you a sense of pleasure. Not only embrace it, but work it. You know, you say,
mhm,
work it,
mhm.
you know, WERK, work it. Work it. And that's the way I try to lead my life. Do no intentional harm to myself or to others. Get happy and work it. And
Yeah.
I'm doing what I love and I love what I do. And I reached that lovely point in life to where that sort of defines 70 years old almost for me. Took a
Mhm.
while, but here we
Yeah.
are. Better late than never.
Exactly. I know last night we had an event and a woman was asking you what her purpose was. And I think that's a question that so many people
Oh, all the
have is
time.
what is
All the
my
time.
purpose? And yeah, I'm sure you hear it several times a week in your readings and
Uh-huh.
sessions.
Uh-huh.
And and it's exactly be happy.
Mhm.
That's your purpose. Do what you love and love what you do. And for one thing that I share with clients a lot is that if you don't know what your purpose is, that puts so much pressure on ourselves
Oh,
because you might have 1,000 purposes,
yeah.
but point your GPS, set your goal for happiness, and know that the universe knows what happiness is for you, and allow yourself to be guided to happiness.
Here's the way I look at people ask me if I'm happy, and I say not always. I don't think any
No.
of us are, but I don't strive to be happy. I strive to be content. And if I
Mm.
can have this lovely life that is on the surface kind of blissfully boring and just kind of plodding along nicely and with a few gullies and a few hills to work your way through on the path, that's fine. But if things are going along most of the time and they're pretty status quo, then I'm a very happy person. I'm a
Mhm,
very happy
mhm,
person. I like my life being content. And I've
mhm,
reached that point to where my life is content. And boy, am I grateful for it. I don't take anything for granted. I'm the type of person, Mr. Guidance from Gratitude. I'm the type of person that says thank you a gazillion times a day.
mhm,
And we
mhm,
think if people pray, some people think you've got to be on your knees in a church to pray, or it's got to be
mhm,
some big hoo ha experience to pray. Wrong. A prayer can be
mhm,
one word. You can walk outside and it can be a lovely day, and you can just
mhm,
look up and smile and say thanks. And that's a
mhm.
prayer.
Yes.
And when someone pays me for a reading, I get an alert on my phone and it chimes and I look down and it says so and so paid you through PayPal for a reading. And every time I get that, I say, "Thank you, Lord." I don't forget that gratitude is an important part of the whole process.
Absolutely. But you can only have that if you're in the present moment.
And we need to strive for that. We really need to
Absolutely.
work it. We really
Work
need
that
to
gratitude.
work the gratitude. I'm going to name drop, and you've probably heard me say this before, but I have a really lovely friend. If anybody that's going to be listening to this has ever watched a TV show called NCIS, NCIS is a show that's been on television for a whole lot of years. And I have a friend who was on the show for about 19 or 20 years, and she played Abby, the lab technician, the kind of goth girl. And the actress's name is Polly Perrette. And through good fortune, we became friends and we were having a conversation at one point in time. I should preface it by saying that she is a very spiritual, religious person. She goes to church every Sunday. So we were having a conversation about faith and religion. And we reached a point in the conversation where she said, "Let's just cut to the chase, Chip Coffey." She goes, "This is a constant prayer that's in my head like an endless loop tape. Here it is. Thank you for everything. And please forgive me for everything."
Hmm.
And when she told me that, I felt something shift in me. And I thought, there is such grace in those simple words. Thank
Mhm,
you for
mhm.
everything. And please forgive me for everything. Thank you for the good, the bad, and the in between. And if I've done anything that's off put you, Lord, I'm asking for your forgiveness. So, in that simple little prayer, I found such beauty. And
Mhm.
with appropriation, I will say that every night when I go to bed and I say my prayers before I go to sleep, I start my prayers with that simple statement. Thank you for everything,
Mhm.
and please forgive me for everything. And so many times during the day, like I said, thank you, Lord, thank you, Lord, thank you, Lord. And he's probably like, all right, all right, all right, I got it, I got it, I got it. But
I
I'm
wish
doing
that
it.
coffee guy would hush up.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it again. I'm going to keep on
He's,
going. I'm going to keep on
well,
going.
I
And here's
know
the
that.
thing, that I call my guides and my angels and everybody in spirit that works with me, my God squad. And I'm
Yes.
so grateful to my God squad for everything that they have helped me with in this lifetime.
Yeah. Well, you've shared several like prayers with me over the years. One is a Bible verse, Mark 11:24. Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours, is something that
I
you
love
shared
that.
with me. And then also the prayer of Jabez.
Prayer of
You've
Jabez.
told me about that. Yeah, about
Yeah.
expanding
The
your
abundance
territory.
prayer. Yeah.
Yes, the
I love
abundance
those,
prayer.
and I'm a praying kind of a person. I pray a lot. So
Yeah.
unashamedly, that's a part of who I am and a part of how I was raised. I grew up in the South for a lot of my life, and before you ate a meal, you said a prayer. Kind of grew up with that, and I'm sure you did too. You grew up in a house. Your
Yes.
dad worked in the church, so I'm sure that
Yes, he
pretty
did.
much you said blessing before you eat dinner or breakfast or lunch
Still
or whatever.
do.
And
When
that's
we're at home, we still do.
say the
Absolutely.
blessing. Yep, absolutely. So
Yep.
there's it's ingrained in many of us, and we lose some of that
Yeah.
along the way. But you can find whatever you might have lost with that faith. You may forget that they don't, and they're there waiting for
Well,
you to come back.
I was going to actually say, similar to your experience with the Catholic Church, I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church, and I did not, as soon as I could get out of there, I did. But as I'm doing this work, one of the things that I had to really work through was my relationship with God, and knowing I could have that direct relationship with God, knowing that I was worthy, that it was possible, because you're always told you have to go through these priests or ministers and what they're saying or the
Nope,
Bible.
nope, nope,
And
nope, nope.
one thing that will happen a lot is hymns, because my dad was a minister of music. So hymns or songs that we sang growing up will come into my head in a session, or
Mm-hmm.
when I'm thinking about a group, or sharing messages with the group. And I just find that, like, before it would have driven me crazy, before I started doing this work,
I
but
love
now
it.
it just feels it's so lovely that I feel like it's my dad just coming in and just sharing these little messages. Yeah, and I know this hymn is very special to you because you said that special to your mom, but in the garden,
Mm.
I come to the garden alone, that hymn. So,
And
um,
and you're going to Oprah me here, Robbie. That song was sung by a friend of mine to my mom on her deathbed. It was my mom's
yeah,
favorite hymn.
yeah.
And there's a line in that song that wrecks me emotionally in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
And the chorus of the song says, and he walks with me and he talks with me. And here it is. And he tells me I am his own.
Mm-hmm.
That, that, I can't even with that one line. And he tells me I am his own. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't even, that touches a place inside my soul that is so tender.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you're married to a Broadway superstar, so you're going to have to help me with this, and we might have to look it
Oh,
up.
Lord.
But there's a song from a show that starts out with "Prepare ye the
Oh,
way
yeah, that's
of the."
from
Is that Pippin?
Godspell.
Oh, it's Godspell. That's
Godspell.
right. It's
Yeah,
Godspell.
yeah, yeah.
That song plays in my head. The beginning of that song plays in my head a lot, and I kind of think
Mm-hmm.
that's telling me, God's still with you. Prepare the way for him, and he's gonna hang with you. You just open up and be
Mm-hmm.
willing to prepare the way of the Lord into your life, and you will have that. And
Yeah,
you don't have to refer to God as God. You can refer to God whatever you want to. It's all the same entity. It
yeah,
really is.
yeah. That's funny. You said that last week I'd done a energy workshop, and I felt like I had a new guide. And all week the archangel of the week was Archangel Jeremiah, and I'd been talking about Jeremiah and working with him and telling talking about him in our group, and and I stopped one day, asked this new guide who what his name was after this energy session, and it was Jerry. Came and it took me like 2 days to realize that it was just Jeremiah, but he was just like, Jerry, it's Jerry. Just like Ella calls Archangel
Mike,
Michael Mike, my guy
Mike,
Mike.
my guy Mike.
and she thanks Mike every night for being with her and keeping her safe. So I love that she has that already as part of her every day of just calling in Archangel Michael and her guardian angel. You gave her that famous painting, of the guardian angel leading the children over the bridge, and she has that at the end of her bed. And every single night, she thanks her guardian angel Mike, and for being with her and for keeping her safe.
You know why I
So.
gave her that? Because when I was a boy, a little teeny tiny boy, my mama bought me that picture, that,
Mm.
and it hung over my bed and has hung over my bed or beside my bed ever since I was a little boy.
Mm.
And when she
Yeah.
started talking about angels and things like that, I knew it was really important for me to get one of those for her to hang in her room. I hope she has it forever.
Yeah. She will. It's definitely ingrained.
It's
Yeah.
so funny, and I'll just say this, and not to get into a topic about my godchildren, but I have a godson named Jack, and of course Ella is my
Mhm.
goddaughter, and both of them are such curious,
Mm.
generous, loving, spiritual beings who've had their own experiences within this weird world of the spirit realm. And I just love watching this stuff. I don't have a DNA connection to these kids, but boy, are they a part of this weird world that I kind of walk in on a frequent basis. It's
Yeah,
just interesting to watch
absolutely.
them evolve into their own stuff.
Yep. I mean, some of the stories that we can do another episode later about some of the experiences we've had when you visited, or you know,
Oh my goodness,
uh,
yes.
yeah. But anyway, well, Chip, thank you so much for doing this recording. I think that there's so many little pieces of wisdom that people can take away and apply to their lives and their path, and not letting yourself get stopped because of fear
Don't get stuck.
and doubt. And yeah, get unstuck.
And if you get stuck, it's okay to ask others that you trust for help.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfectly fine to do that.
And if you don't want to ask a human, ask your spirit partners. That's what I tell people. If you're too embarrassed to ask somebody living, ask your spirit partners or ancestors, or
Yep.
whoever
Your
you feel
God's ask your
connected
God
to.
squad. Ask your God squad for help.
Exactly.
And well,
Exactly.
let me before we're done, I want to talk about you one more time. And that is, we've talked about how you've helped me with my process and how we've been friends for well over a dozen years. I could never begin to express how important you are in my life. You are, I use the term family a lot, friends who become family. So family with an R. You and Ray and Ella are my family, and I I honor that and I treasure that, and I am immensely grateful that the three of you are part of my world. So thank you for that, for all that you do for me, for all that you have given to me, for all that you are. I honor you and thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chip. I appreciate that very much. But let's be honest. I know my place. You only keep me around so you can have access to the kid.
Well, I try not to say that out loud often, but there may be a grain of truth in that, more
Love
than
you
I could
too,
ever
Chip.
express. And to all the listeners that are here, avail yourself of my services, avail yourself of Robbie's services if you find the need to do so, because we would be happy to do what we can to be of assistance to you in any way that we can.
Thank you, Chip. I appreciate it. And if you are interested in learning more about the services that Chip offers, you can find that out on his website, chipcoffey.com. Thank you, Chip, for this conversation. I really felt drawn to start this series back up, and I'm really honored that you would come and be the first guest of the year. So thank you for that. Well, I love you and thank you so
I love
much.
you, love you, love you. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
I want to thank you for tuning in today to our podcast. I hope that the conversation I had with Chip was as inspirational to you as it was to me. If you'd like to learn more about the services that I offer, you can through my website, either going to guidancefromgratitude.com or robbiekearns.com. I also let you know that Nicole Schoen and I have relaunched our Angel Answers series, where we do abbreviated readings for people through the lens of sharing messages from the archangels. So it's a wonderful way to learn more about the archangels and how to work with them in your everyday life. Those are being held every third Wednesday of the month, and we'd love to see you there. You can learn more about that on my website as well. So thank you so much. Sending love and light to everyone. Have a great day.